Today I'd like to talk to you about sum versus subtotal. These are both very useful and they're both very different formulas for different reasons. Similar but very different. So first thing I'll talk about is sum. This is something that's probably the easiest, the basic, first formula you've ever figured out how to use in Excel. Because if you go right on the Home tab, you'll notice they actually have a shortcut for it right here. So if I put the cursor, let's just say to the right of a row of data, and I click Auto Sum, it immediately finds the numbers and starts summing. So it goes to, this invoice number is a text field, so it didn't go there. So it just went to unit price, quantity, and invoice amount. Now this is going to sum these three numbers. So the unit price, the quantity, and the invoice amount, which is something we probably wouldn't want to do in the real world, but I just want to show you that that's how that works. So if you take the $14 plus 4 plus 56, it comes out to that $74.57. Let me just add a couple of rows onto the top so I can kind of sum at the top here and show you. So I'm just going to click highlight 3 rows, right click, and just going to say insert. So now if I want to come back and do some summing, see, summing is great. I mean, all you do is really hit a plus or an equal sign so that Excel knows that you're going to type in a function or formula, type sum, and then you could just basically hit tab. And now that kind of puts that first parentheses there. Now it's waiting for some information from you. So if you just want to sum up the invoice totals, you just hold the shift key down, hit end down, and then hit enter, and it kind of closes them up automatically for you. So that's $16,000. Another thing with sum, which you may or may not know, is that you don't have to just sum up one column or one row. So if you start typing sum and I hit the plus sign so that Excel knows that I'm going to be typing a formula, hit tab, and now I could just use my mouse and to kind of shift down, hold shift so that it keeps that range. So I'm summing up. I could come over to the left a little. I could sum all 3 of these columns. So that's 2,000s. And then what I'm summing there is C8 to E22. See, if I just went to E, it would be 1,000. And now it's summing up from, say, C to E, it's 2,200. So that's one of those things that some people know, some people don't know. But it could be useful. It could definitely be handy if you're trying to work on a large range of data with multiple amounts in multiple columns. Another thing you could do is you could actually just have different columns, but they don't have to be contiguous. They don't have to be next to each other. So if I just want to say sum, and I sum up, say we'll just do like 10 items, and then I just want to also include the unit price, but not the quantity. Well, in this case, I'm going to hold Control. I'm going to come over to unit price. So you see what it did? It's summing this range, comma this range. So that's the syntax you would use. And now it's doing 1,047, whereas if I just say get rid of the unit price, it's 825. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to put a sum up here on the top of this column, on the invoice number, right? So I'm going to use sum, start the invoice amount all the way down, and that gets me back to that 16,397. In fact, I'm going to cut and paste it up one just so I could give myself a little room. If you watch my video on filtering, you'll notice that there's a lot of uses for filtering. And so real quickly, without going too crazy into filters, I'm just going to highlight my range and I'm going to go back to the Home tab, sort filter, and click filter. Now here's the thing. If I'm going to filter on, let's just say, a sum, let's just say I want to just filter on Carol Smith. I could come here and say, hey, I look and at the bottom in the sum tab, that's about, I'd say about $1,700 worth of invoices. But this still says 16,000. So if I come here and pick somebody else, Carol Jones, that's one invoice for 196, but this again still says 16,000. I remember I was on an audit one time, and at the client, he was an entrepreneur and he was into a lot of different businesses. So I was actually with the audit partner, and the guy said, I try to do all this stuff with filtering, but it doesn't give me the right totals. And I said, listen, sum is not the formula you want to be using in a situation where you're going to filter. So that's why I want to get into sum versus subtotal, because subtotal is a completely different. It's similar, but totally different, right? So let me go back and I'm going to filter this whole bit of data. I just took off the filter and I'm going to put it right back on. And now I'm going to start right here and type in subtotal. So substitute, I'm going to hit the arrow down and go to subtotal. Subtotal is a little different than sum. It could do a lot more than sum though, because if you look, to subtotal, you're going to use a function within the subtotal function. So you could subtotal by a sum, you could subtotal by a count, you could subtotal by an average, min, max, and if you look here, you can kind of see all these different things. So to make it easier, I'm going to come up to the formula wizard, and basically what it's going to say is what function do you want to use, and each function has a number in the subtotal, and then references the range of data that we want to use. Now let's just say you don't know what the number of sum is in a subtotal formula. Excel has a pretty good help menu, so let me just click on help. And from here, it kind of gives you all of the syntax you would need to know. So if you come down here, this explains to you the subtotal formula, and then you can see there's these different function numbers, and this is what you need to type in. So function number 1 is average, 2 is count. You know, if you go down a little bit, 9 is sum. So just knowing these or knowing how to get to that really helps you out. So here, I'm going to type in 9 because I want to sum this data. And now, if you type in over here, you see it comes in at the 9. I would then put a comma like I did when I picked those non-contiguous rows with the sum formula a few minutes ago. And then you could select your range, you know, so it's like separated by a comma. But if I come here, I could just click on the reference and it'll allow me to pick my first range. So right here, I want to pick this range. And that's good for this point. I'm just going to sum on the invoice amount. You could pick multiple ranges, but you know, for this example, one range is plenty. I'm going to say OK. So now you see, I'm just going to make this a comma so that I have just the 2 decimals. So this is the subtotal, and then this is the sum. Now, as I said, they're very similar but completely different. So here we're subtotaling using the sum function here. So you know, you can do different functions, but for now we're going to do the sum. So here's where it gets a little different, right? I said sum and subtotal are very similar but yet completely different. So you see right here, we have E7 to E72. And here we have the subtotal of, well, E8, but I'll just make this E7 so it's this exact same formula, right? So E7 to E72. I have the heading selected. You don't really have to have the heading selected. But you can see with everything showing, there's nothing filtered. It's 16,397 for the sum and the subtotal. Here's where they start to get a little different, and here's where the subtotal becomes so useful. If I come to, say, company name, and I just want to look at ABC company, now my table only shows me the values where the company name equals ABC company. You can see that the sum, the total didn't change at all because it's still summing up the entire range, whether it's visible or not visible. Whereas the subtotal is only summing what filtered value is showing. So we have ABC company showing. It's only giving me the total for ABC company. And that's it too. I mean, if I just want to say, hey, just show me ABC company where the quantity is 4. Well, there's only one of them, but you could see it's 258, 258. I mean, you could go crazy filtering. It doesn't matter. It's whatever shows is what actually is going to subtotal. So that's just the difference, and that's something that's really, really useful. If you didn't know that subtotaling, especially when you use it with filters, this could be like a lifesaver. I mean, it just allows somebody to really kind of get in there and analyze data quickly, and having the subtotals at the top like that, they're always visible, so it makes it really useful. I hope this tip helped you out, because this helped me out a lot, and it saves me a tremendous amount of time. If you have any questions, throw it down in the comments. All right, thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. I hope this video really helped you out. And if it did help, please hit like and subscribe, because that really helps me out. Also, head on over to my website at expertofficetraining.com, and you can see a lot more training videos, and also sign up for my email newsletter and get a free video course delivered right into your inbox. Again, it's expertofficetraining.com, or just click the link below.